do the needful. Thank you very much. Sameh, I don't know if it was some more, but I hope your colleagues have all joined now. I think the number has increased by about 40 or so people. So I think they've joined. So without wasting much time, we can proceed. All right. We are going to begin with chapter 1, a field of study called geography. As I was saying earlier, geography is not an English word. It is a Greek word. In fact, a combination of two words. Now, the word was first used by a man called Eratosthenes. Eratosthenes. Uh, I know some of the names you are going to meet in this entire, some of them are going to be funny. And Eratosthenes is even the easiest of them. Some of them are much funnier than this. But I'll urge you, since it is a geography lecture, you please pay attention. Get the spellings right. Please get the spellings right. It's not Eratosthenes. It is Eratosthenes. All right. Now, he was the first to use the word geography. And then the first part of the word geo means earth. And the graphy means description. The geo means earth, or the G means earth, and graphy means description. Now, this alone should tell you what geography is all about. It means that geography is the description of the earth. Geography is simply the description of the earth, whether it is areas on top of the earth, within the earth, beneath the earth. Once it is something about the earth, you are studying geography. And by the earth, I mean the solid earth and the liquid earth. And there is a reason why I'm saying the liquid earth, because there's a water section or a liquid section of the earth where we have the sea, the oceans, the rivers, and what have you. Okay, but underneath all of that water surface, you still have land. Okay, and so geography takes care of all of those things. And in fact, I believe that when you studied physical geography, you were taught the systems of the earth. Okay, you should have done something on hydrology, geology, and all of those things. Okay, so geography takes care of all of those things. But bear in mind, the first person to use the word or to coin the word geography was Eratosthenes. If you have a pen and a paper, I hope you are writing some things down. For instance, the first person to use the word geography. Okay, I'm not saying you are going to see it anywhere, but you may see it somewhere. So a word to the wise is enough. Eratosthenes is the first to use the word geography. It's a hand up. My line is breaking. Is everybody experiencing that same problem?
No, please.
So please, the breakage of the line is caused by those who put on their videos. When the videos are put on, it interrupts the others.
Okay, so please, if you are here, try as much as possible to either mute yourself or put your video off so that it will not disrupt any other person's feed, okay? So that we can all have a smooth lecture. Thank you very much. All right, so now we are done with the person who was the first person to use the word geography. Remember, geo means earth, graphy means description. And so the literal meaning of geography means the description of the earth. Now, secondly, we say that the Greek geographers, okay, and we say the Greek geographers because by far they were the earliest people to start doing something geographic. You must understand that although some of the things they did were not directly geographic, they were the ones who started doing something that could be geographic. All right. And so the first person to start writing about geographical ideas, okay, was a man named Homer. So whereas Eratosthenes was the first to use the word geography, Homer was the one to begin geographical writings. Now, take note of these two people very, very, very well, because we will discuss them in much detail later. Eratosthenes and Homer. Okay, all right. Now, We also say that the earliest known map of the world was made by Sumerians. Sumerians in about 2700 BC. 2700 BC. Now, this is 2700 years before the birth of Christ. And so, for all the years that you are going to see in throughout this course, if you see anything BC, it means before Christ. Literally, it means before Christ. So, 2700 years before the birth of Christ. If and in that same line, if you should see any year that has something something AD, that is in Latin, it means Anno Domini, or the year of our Lord, literally meaning the death of Christ. So if you see 2000 AD, then it means 2000 years after the death of Christ. I hope you are getting it right. And I hope you are writing something down. Okay, some of these things are not in the slide. I'll be passing these comments as we move along so that you can get much more clarity. All right. All right. Now, this transition us to certain important questions that geographers asked in the ancient times. Okay, these people were very, very curious people. They were very, very curious. They always wanted to know something all the time. And that is why, even when we are talking about the greatest philosophers on earth, we refer to people like Plato and Aristotle. These two people are Greeks. Always and anytime, they always wanted to know more. And so they were asking certain critical geographic questions. And these questions were three. These questions were three. So which means that anything that they encounter, any problem that they encounter, any geographic phenomenon, being it an earthquake, being it a fire outbreak, being it the formation of a waterfall, being it anything that could be, okay, they ask three major geographical questions that I want you to take note of, okay, because I have seen it somewhere as a question. Okay, a word to the wise once again is enough. The first question that they ask, okay, where is it? Where is it? Now, this is a question of location. This is a question of location. Now, when they ask this question, this is what they are trying to find out. Starting from the known living space, in what direction do we travel and how far? Okay, how do we even measure distance and direction? When we reach the place on the other side of the horizon, where are we? I must emphasize that at this point, these people had not embarked on any experiment to find out if the earth was flat or was round or spherical. Okay, and so many of them actually thought the earth was flat. So when you get to the other side of the earth, you may probably fall off. But the question that they were asking, this where is it question, they are trying to find out location. If something is happening, and this question we even ask it till date. If, for instance, someone should come to you and say, Same or Comfort or Gloria, there's a fire outbreak. Most likely, the first question that you would ask is, where is it? That's the first question you'd ask. And this is even similar to what you even studied. We were studying the scientific method, if you remember very clearly, when you were studying the scientific method under chapter 1. Okay, the first question that you are supposed to ask is more or less a locational question. Where is it? Okay, now the Greeks at that time, earlier, they had not yet developed any tools for defining accurate location. Okay, whereas we today we have something we call the GPS, where you have the longitude and the latitude. Initially, the Greeks did not develop that thing yet, so they were using something that we call relative location. And this transitions us to the next point. It says that location must always be relative to some observable feature, such as a range of hills, a coastline, a river, or a town. Okay, this means that you try to define location to something else. So where has the new market been built? Oh, it is behind the hill. Okay, Where is the location for the new festival? It is 2 meters in front of the chief's palace. So always defining something in relation to an observable feature. Okay, where is this particular settlement? Oh, it is at the bank of the river. Do you understand? So this is the first question or geographical question that the Greeks were asking. Where is it? They were just trying to find out location. Now you actually come to understand that location is the fundamental element behind geography. Every and anything that we do as geographers must and should be defined by location. Other than that, we could as well be talking about history, but everything must be grounded in location. Once again, I hope you are writing some 1 or 2 points down. Okay. Now, the ancient Greeks first formulated the theory of locating places with reference to a grid of imaginary lines of latitude and longitude based on the poles and the equator. Okay, so after they had tried to locate things using the relative location, where you locate things using observable features, okay, like the hills and the other natural features, eventually they found out that some of these things are not permanent because the river can dry up. If the river dries up, what are you going to use as a observable feature? Okay, if it was a hill and the because of a road construction they must cut everything down or they must lower everything down, what are you then going to use as the observable feature? So they try to then define a better way of locating things using the grid system. Okay, and the grid system is simply the usage of longitude and latitude lines. Okay, and this you've already treated extensively under physical geography. Okay, so I will not spend much time on this. So once again, the first geographical question is what? Where is it? Now this is a locational question. All right. The second question that these people asked was this: what is it like? What is it like? Now this is a question of observation and perception. A question on what? Observation and perception. Your friend has told you there is a fire outbreak, there is a flood, there is an earthquake, and you immediately ask, where is it? And they tell you, oh, it is happening close to the hill, or it is the hill that is the problem. Then the next question that you would ask, if it is a fire outbreak, what is it like? What is going on? What is it like? Okay, by that you are trying to find a mental image of what is happening. In fact, you can even go as far as defining intensity of what is happening. Okay, what is it like? How intense is the fire? Okay, how many buildings have been destroyed? All of those things are defined by what is it like through what observation and perception. Now, it says that the phrase what is it like stands for a fundamental thought process. How does one go about observing and reporting on things and events that occupy segments of Earth space? Experience shows that the things observed are already familiar because they are like phenomena that occur at home or because they resemble the abstract images and models developed in the human mind. And so we come to the main point I want you to keep in mind or write down. The fact that the direct observation through the senses is described as percept. Is there a question? I think a hand is up. Or two. Yes, Selena.
Please kindly repeat your statement, the one you just spoke. The fact that the direct.
Okay, okay. Let me re-say that. Okay, I said the direct observation through the senses is described as percept. Direct observation through the senses is described as percept, and the mental image is described as concept. So there are two main elements under what is it like. We have percept and concept. Now let me break this down for you. The human being or the human body has five official senses also. We have the sense of sight, we have the sense of smell, the sense of feeling, the sense of taste. I forgot. Is there a question once again? Stephen Edu and Stephen Edu, let me deal with Stephen first. Okay, you can't see my
Please,
screen.
that yes, yes, yes,
Oh, sorry about that. Sorry about that. Is it showing now?
yes, please.
All right. Okay. So let me break it down. We have a number of known senses: the sense of smell, the sense of taste, the sense of hearing, the sense of seeing, and the sense of feeling. So that makes 5 known senses. Now, anytime you have something through those senses, you are having what we call a percept or a perception. Okay, so you are having what you call a percept or a perception. Now, this means that, excuse me, this means that you are perceiving something. You hear a voice. Now, you know that it is your husband or your wife or your child or your mother or your father who is on the other side of the line. Why? Because you have heard their voice before. And so you may not even have to see them, but once you can hear the voice, you can be able to distinguish and say, this is my mother's voice, this is my father's voice. That is why sometimes someone may even call you on your own phone without a number you have saved. But the moment the person says hello, you know that, oh, this is this person, without even asking, who is this? Do you get it? So anything that you observe through the senses is called a percept. These are things you have seen before. These are things that you have heard before, you have felt before. Sometimes even a smell can trigger a feeling. You smell something and you know your eyes may even be blindfolded, but you can even be sleeping in a car and be driving by, but you get to a certain place that it is a rubbish dump. Then the moment you get that smell, you know that I am close to my house. Okay, that is a percept. You have directly observed something through the senses. Please, I hope at least the percept is okay. So once you perceive something through the senses, you are doing something we call a percept. You are trying to understand what it is like. Okay. Now, the second way of observation is somehow indirect. And that is where you try to create a mental picture in your mind. And so we call that what? A concept. A concept. Now, let me also break this one down. How many of you have ever seen God before?
No one.
No one. Not even the ladies. The ladies who have been going for the all night and the kabadosh and all those things. You've not seen God before. Wow. That is very interesting. But you realize that the moment we start talking about a big man sitting in a golden chair with white hair, with eyes like fire. Now, all of you listening to my voice right now, a certain mental image is forming in your mind. A light-skinned man with big white hair and white beard, wearing gold with angels standing all around him. Everybody is having some sort of a mental image in their minds right now. That is what we call what? A concept. So you've not seen it with your eyes as through what? The percept, but a mental image has already been formed in your mind. So you conceive it without seeing it. Now, the picture that I am picturing in my mind might be different from what you are picturing in your mind, but we all have a certain picture of something in our minds. Okay, and so in order to understand what it is like, these Greeks came up with 2 main means. Okay, we have the percept and the concept. With the percept, you directly observe something through the senses. You can either smell it. That's why even now, someone can smell gas in the house and say, someone's gas is leaking, because they have directly observed or sensed it through the nose. Okay, But with a concept, how do you describe something that is in your mind to someone for them to get the exact image as you are getting? And so that is somehow an indirect observation. So when someone tries to narrate something that you've not seen to you, when we were all kids, some of our colleagues in the richer families, they watch movies, and when we meet at the roadside, they try and narrate the movie to you. As they are narrating the movie to you, you are sort of forming a mental image of the fight and everything that was going on in your mind, and that is what we call what a concept. I hope that is clear. All right. Now, people of different cultures or even individuals in the same culture develop different mental images of reality. As I said, so you may all be Christians, but your concept of God is different. The way you picture God is different. Someone may picture God as a very humble man, but someone else pictures God as an almighty being, and everybody has a different concept. Okay, all right. So we've done how many questions? 2 questions. The location and the observation. The location question asks where is it? And then the observation question asks what is it like? Now the third important question that these people ask is this: what does it mean if there is a fire outbreak, if there is an earthquake, if there is a flood, if anything that happens? What does it mean? Is there trouble? Are the gods angry with us? Is it that a new life is about to be born? If, for instance, we farm and we farm and we farm and our crops are not yielding enough produce, what does it mean? Okay, now, through this, the Greeks were trying to understand something: orderliness, coherence, and then harmony in the universe. Now, the Greek philosophers distinguish between chaos and cosmos, which refers to the universe conceived as a system of harmoniously related parts. Now, this means that in the universe, okay, over here, as where we are living in right now, when there is chaos, it means that there is flow. When there is cosmos, there's some sort of peace. Do you understand it? So what does it mean? I hope you are making the connections over here. What does it mean if, for instance, there is a period of drought, severe drought, animals are dying because of lack of water, food is scarce because of low productivity? What does it mean? It means there is chaos. If they rather enter a time of plentifulness, of abundance, there is the cosmos. I hope you get it clear. Now, in Samaria, the religious leaders saw a world ruled by living beings like humans, but endowed with superhuman powers and with immortality. So just as we have here in our part of the world, Asaseya, and all of those things in charge of the land. Sometimes before you plant, you must pour libation to ask for permission, to ask for plentifulness and high productivity. It's the same thing that they also did elsewhere. Okay, and so they attributed elements of the earth to gods. So they were like humans, but they had superhuman powers and immortality. Trying to simply understand why something was happening. What does it mean? Do you understand? Now, each of these beings was responsible for control and maintenance of some feature of the world, such as the flow of rivers, the rise and fall of tide, the shift of the winds, productivity of harvest, as we have it in Ghana, and the abundance of game animals. Okay, so where you have certain river gods and all of those things, people were just trying to understand why certain things were happening. That is why if anything should happen in a river, they go and pour libation and they ask the river god to either produce the body of whoever has died or whatever, because there's the understanding that there is a meaning to what has happened. Do you understand? All right. Now, in some cases, the notion of a single deity is retained, but the acts of this deity are not arbitrary. The idea of law itself. Is there a question? All right, let's move on. The idea of law itself is an anthropomorphism. That is the reflection of human experience. Some of these things they may be too abstract for you, so I'll jump on to the parts that are most important. Now, the other way of understanding what is it like, remember the third question is what is it like? Okay, is interpretation through what? Cause and effect sequence. Is a hand up again. Let me see here. Is someone's hand up? Please, if you raise your hand and I address you, just go ahead with your question. Samuel, I think someone's hand is up. All right. Samuel is not speaking. Let's move on. As I was saying, there are two main ways of understanding what is it like. That is through cause and effect. Sorry, cause and effect. Now, this was done by two main people, Plato and Aristotle. And these two people, we will talk about them today as well when we get to lecture 2. Now, Plato was the one who conceived the world as having been created in perfection, but now in the process of decline from perfection. So Plato was a person who believed that the world was created perfectly, something resembling the story of the Garden of Eden in the Bible. For the Christians, I am sure the Muslims must also have heard of it before. Okay, so in the story of the Garden of Eden, God created the earth, and in fact, after creating everything, he saw that what? It was good. In Genesis, he saw that it was good. So God created the world in perfection. Now, after he created the world in perfection, human beings, through our activities, are rather destroying the world or reducing the quality of the world through our destruction. Okay, so now the world is now what, in a process of decline from perfection. It was first created perfectly, like Garden of Eden, but other beneath through their activities rather were the ones who destroyed it, and then consequences began to take place. You understand? And by this, they are still trying to understand what it means. Why are we experiencing this? All the way going back to the fact that there are certain religious beings that control activities on the earth. Okay, so that was the first way. Now the second way was developed by Aristotle, who said that, or he conceived. Remember, the use of the word what? Conceive. Conceive. Where have we seen this before? We've seen this under what is it like? Through a concept. So I hope some of these linkages you are making them. Now, Aristotle conceived the world as striving towards perfection. Okay, rather striving towards perfection. This means that the world was not created perfectly, but human beings through our activities are the ones rather striving towards perfection. So let me give you a typical example. Plato and the people who support Plato in this sense will be the people, the first sense, okay, the one here, the A, will be the people who think that through wars, through famine, through droughts, through certain other natural, man-made disasters, we are the ones destroying the world. Okay, so proponents like people who support climate change, where we are now saying that there's too much carbon in the atmosphere and what have you. They are the ones who believe that the world was created in perfection, but through our activities as human beings, the world is now in a decline from perfection. And then people who support Aristotle's idea will be the ones who say that no, human beings, rather through our actions and activities like technology, like modern medicine, like efficient transportation systems, we are the ones rather trying to make the world what a more perfect place to be. So I'll pause here and ask this question. Class, which of them do you support? Plato or Aristotle? Which of them do you support? Yes, Mr. Emmanuel. Chris Pine Osei Kufo says he supports Plato. Interesting. Any other? Lord Kumavo. Oh, any other? Let's try and make it a little more interesting. Any other view who supports the Plato or Aristotle's view of the world? Aristotle, both Plato all the way. Amos, talk to us. Amos, your hand is up. Someone says Plato has a point. Both, wow, interesting views. Interesting views. So the point here is that you are all right, whether you support Plato or Aristotle. So it is a question um, of your point of view. Okay, your point of view. Everything is about your point of view. How you are seeing it is how you understand it and how you would interpret it. Okay, because Plato is actually right in saying that we are actually in the process of decline. Because take for instance farming. Okay, farming now has I mean the soil now in many areas have declined in quality. So if you plant without applying fertilizer and the like, you are not going to get as much produce as you would have about 50 or 100 years ago, because the soil nutrients have been depleted. How? Through our activities. But Aristotle, or people who support Aristotle, as just like some of you in the comment section, will be the ones to say that, oh, it has always been this bad, but rather through activities as human beings, we are rather trying to make it what a better place. So when we apply more fertilizer, when we develop better transportation systems, I mean, we can't control everything, but when the thing happens, once we're able to control it efficiently, we are on the right track. Let me read a comment here. He says, I believe that it's because of humans destroying the world. That is why we are trying to perfect it. Interesting view and interesting comment. Okay, so thank you all for your comments. I appreciate them. So let's move on. So now we are done with the three questions. Okay, the three main questions the geographers asked. The where is it question, trying to understand location. All right. Then we came to the what is it like question. And by this question, they were trying to make observation and what perception. And how did they do that? Through two main means. We have the percept and the concept. The percept is where you observe things directly through the senses. When you see it, when you smell it, when you feel it, when you hear it, when you taste it, you have directly observed it. But the moment you try to create a mental image or a mental picture of something in your mind, because you've not seen it before, then it means you are doing what you call a conception or a concept. You are having a concept. Okay. All right. Then we came to the third question, which was what does it mean? And in the what does it mean, they try to understand coherence or harmony or orderliness in such a manner that they attributed various earth elements to spiritual beings. Okay, and when there is confusion among these spiritual beings, just as we know in the Greek mythology, those of you who have ever read anything around the Zeus and the Jupiter and all of those things, if you've ever read about them, anytime there is some confusion of some sort among themselves, the effect is felt where on the earth. Or in certain cases where we offend these spiritual beings, they punish us. And so, how do they punish us? Through some of these things that we see, like droughts, like this, like that, like that. And when we eventually appease them, when we make sacrifices to them, they will then bless us with what? Rainfall, with bountiful harvest, with plenty children, and what have you. So, all of that, what are we trying to do? Trying to understand what is going on. Exactly. The other way of doing this is through cause and effect sequences. Still trying to understand what is going on through the what does it mean. Okay, and so we do that through cause and effect as defined by Plato and Aristotle. Remember, Plato was the one who said that the world was created in perfection, but now in a decline from perfection. But Aristotle is rather saying that what the world is rather trying to strive toward perfection. Okay, take note of what is emboldened over here. Aristotle was the father of the teleological concept, which sees the universe planned by its creator in the manner of a carpenter drawing up plans in advance for the house he's building. So he has made the plans. He's now trying to make it perfect, trying to put the pieces together. Okay, I have seen this question also somewhere before. Who is the father of the teleological concept? A word to the wise is enough. All right. So all of this side is still just trying to find interpretation to the cause and effect sequence. But we will move on to the study of geography from ancient to modern times. But let's make a quick recap. From the beginning, we said that what Eratosthenes was the first person to use the word, or he was the one who coined the word geography. Okay, and the word geography means the description of the word, literally a combination of two Greek words, geo and graphy. Geo meaning earth, graphy meaning what description, as coined by who? Eratosthenes. Now, it will transition to Homer, and we said that Homer was the first person to start with geographical writings. Geographical writings. All right. Now, let's move on to the study of geography from ancient to modern times. The scholars of Babylonia had already collected a large amount of data on the motions of stars and planets, and they developed the concepts. You see what is here again? A concept, which means that they have not seen it yet, but they have created mental images of it in their mind. All right. They developed the concept that the position of celestial bodies had a fundamental effect on human activities. And this is true because some people who believe in these things, they are the ones who tell you that when it is an eclipse, there is a meaning on human activities or human life. Okay, when it is the peak of the rainy season or summer or winter or this or that, they have certain attributions to all of those things. Okay, if they see a comet flying in the sky, there is an interpretation for that. If an asteroid, they say if an asteroid is, for instance, coming to hit the Earth, there is an interpretation for that. Okay, and so these people were people who they were people who observed things a lot, and they were people who also conceived a lot of theories in their minds. Okay, and I must emphasize that some of these things are actually true because certain observations that we have on Earth, for instance, when the moon, for instance, we all know the moon is part of the celestial bodies, right? Now, when the moon rises at night, it increases the tide of the ocean. We know this, right? So which means that celestial bodies have an effect on the Earth. All right. Now, Plato, who developed the deductive procedures, is the most often quoted by those who prefer to give theory to the position of chief importance. Okay, so Plato is someone he's a theorist. Plato is a theorist, so he tries to sit in his corner or in his room, and then you imagine things, create mental pictures of things in his mind, and then generate a theory out of it. Later on, as I said, we are going to discuss Plato much more extensively and Aristotle as well. But he will just make a theory and then you make certain deductions from it. If this is this, then this is that. If this is this, then this is that. Do you understand? That is a theory. If this happens, then that will happen. He may not have gone to observe things himself, but from the little that he knows, he can say that if this is happening, then this might have been the cause of it. Okay. Whereas Aristotle was the one who developed the inductive procedures. So Plato developed deductive, and then Aristotle developed inductive. As for these two people, just put it in your mind that throughout the lecture, we are going to be hearing of them almost everywhere. Okay, Aristotle developed the inductive procedures. He preferred to formulate his concept as generalizations from empirically observed facts. So he is the one who he's the proponent of going to observe, go and see, go and observe for yourself, instead of possibly sitting in your classroom and just trying to create mental pictures of things in your mind to explain something. Why don't you rather just go there and observe for yourself? Okay, literally explaining what the inductive procedures, observation through facts. All right. Okay. Now, these two things, they give birth to what? The two basic traditions in geography. Okay, and so at this point, you should be writing something now. There are two basic traditions in geography. There are two basic traditions in geography. Okay, one is the mathematical tradition, and then we also have what? The literary tradition. The mathematical tradition and the literary tradition. Now, let me explain them. With the mathematical tradition, these are people who try to use mathematics, numbers, figures to explain geographic phenomena. So the earth is spherical. They can calculate it using numbers by measurements. Okay. So anything geographic that they did at that time that involved the use of numbers or measurements or figures, charts, like the drawing of maps and all of those things. All of those things are classified as what? Mathematical tradition. And by extension, all those who did anything mathematic geographically were part of the what? The mathematical tradition. Now, it started with a man called Thales of Miletus. Today, we'll talk about him as well. We also have another man called Hipparchus. Now, he formulated a theory of locating things by latitude and longitude. We'll also talk about him either today or next week. And then this was summarized by Ptolemy. Ptolemy, please, not Ptolemy. Not Ptolemy. As I said, some of the names we are going to encounter today are quite funny, but you bear with me, but take note of the spellings. Okay. All right. So that is the mathematical tradition. Now, the second tradition in geography is the literary tradition. The literary tradition. Now, these are people who may not have probably gone to observe things themselves, but they just like to write. And so they write about things. Instead of doing measurements and testing and evaluation, they like to write. So they were literally maybe reporters, let's say reporters. Okay, they see something, they write it down. Today we'll call them journalists and reporters. They would write it down in their books, in their poems, in their prose, and all of those things. They'll write all of those things down, okay, so that they can then be distributed to other people. And so that's also what we call the literary tradition. So whenever they did something the geographic without measurements, without tables or numbers or charts, they were what? Doing what we call the literary tradition. Now we started with Homer. As you observed in the first slide, we spoke about Homer and said that Homer was the one who started geographical writings. Okay, we'll talk about him later today as well, including Hecatius, the first writer of geographical prose, and then summarized by Strabo. Okay, so these are the two basic traditions of geography, mathematical and then literary. All right. Now, from this point, we are going to give an overview of the entire course. Okay. The age of exploration began in the late 15th century and the geographic horizons were pushed back. So from the time of the Greeks, we call that era the classical era. Okay. In the age of exploration, people wanted to explore. People were just simply curious. They wanted to know what was going on in different areas of the earth. Okay, and so that is what we call the age of exploration. People wanted to explore. Now, the two fundamental innovations began to shake the world of scholarship in the 16th century, and this reached its full proportion in the second half of the 19th century. What are these two events? One was that the concepts derived from the literal reading of the scriptures were challenged. So, up until a period of time, the Bible was the fundamental basis of the explanation of almost all geographic phenomena. If it happened that there was an earthquake, they would read the Bible and then try to find out the cause from the Bible. So, for instance, if in the Bible God punished the Israelites through flood, and the flood has occurred somewhere currently on the earth, they will say that perhaps we have offended God. Okay, if there was a disease outbreak, an epidemic or a pandemic or whatever it is, okay, like what we experienced some few years ago under COVID-19, around that time they would have attributed it to what? A certain religious something, just literal reading of what? The Bible. All right. So the argument is that around the 16th century, okay, people began to challenge these things. The fact that how can you just read something from the Bible and then derive meaning from it to explain what is happening now? What happened around that time is not what is going on now. And so context differ. Context differ. What happened in their time is not what is happening now. All right. And then secondly, the fundamental innovations began in the 17th century and reached widespread development in the second half of the 19th century. This was a separation of the academic world into distinct fields or disciplines. So the first thing that happened was the challenging of the literal reading of the Bible. The second thing that happened was that the academic world before that time was all grouped into one. So all of you who are on this particular, who are listening to my voice this morning on this particular lecture, you didn't have the authority to become a geographer or a physicist or a doctor or whatever. Okay, once you decided to attend school, you study everything. That is why for people like Plato and Aristotle, you hear their name almost everywhere. Economics, they are in there. Geography, they are in there. When you go to medicine, they are in there. Okay, and so before this period, the world's academic knowledge was grouped into one. So once you decided to become an academic, you study everything. But in the 16th century, after the literal reading of the Bible was challenged, another thing took place, the fact that the academic world now began to be broken down into different disciplines. And so then you can become a master of a particular field. You can become a geographer. You can become a chemist. You can become an engineer. Okay. Previously, all of those things were one. If you decided to become an academic, you study all of those things. You study history, science, and every other thing. But in the 16th century, they began to break all of these things down into distinct fields. I hope that is clear. All right. Now, Herodotus was a man who made major contributions to both history and geography, and so he is often called the father of ethnography. So later on, we are going to speak about this man as well. So once all of these areas is just giving an overview of what we are going to do much later in the course. So I would beg for us to just move ahead to this particular slide. Okay, move ahead to this particular slide. All right. Now, geography is closely involved with cartography in the development and use of maps, which are ideally suited to the study of complex location factors. As I said earlier, or I think let me take it a step back to this time, okay, to this slide. Pardon me. The question now asks, what then do geographers do? Because it's like the geographers were doing a lot of things. Geographers were spread all over the world. But what really do geographers do? The special skills of geography are those related to the significance of location and spatial relations of things and events. So, as a geographer, your main task is to be able to attribute accurate location and spatial relations to things and events. So, something happens, you should be able to point to the exact spot, the exact place that thing happened. That is the concept of location. Now, spatial relations talk about the fact that on the surface of the earth, in any and every community, there are different elements in there. There are human beings, there is the earth, there are plants, there are trees, there is the air, there is water bodies. What sort of relationship exists between all of these elements? Okay, that's what we refer to as spatial relations of things and events. Okay, so that is the task of a geographer, understanding location and then spatial relationships. What happens in this particular community? Okay, so geographers will then come out with the facts or with the explanations that human beings impact the environment, and then the environment also what impact human beings. Something we are going to speak a lot of much later. Right. Now, geography has always been a holistic tradition, so that it comes with no intellectual shock to the study systems of interconnected and interdependent parts of diverse origin. Geography is closely involved with cartography in the development and the use of maps, which are ideally suited for the study of complex location factors. So cartography is an aspect of geography. That is the art and science of making maps. Now, if you have identified something, it is best to document it. Just as the first people we know of were the ones who were the people who were the first people to sort of develop maps. Those people, we call them what, the Sumerians, if you remember in the first slide. All right. Now, cartography is important because without it, navigation will be difficult. It is not today that we have maps on our phones like the Google Maps and Apple, whatever they call them, on our phones to help us with navigation and location and all of that. Previously, you had to draw the map on a paper. Now, it is a whole different task from what we are thinking it is. It's not an easy task, okay? But it is important because we must be able to identify what is where. Take, for instance, the sailors who travel on the ocean. Without maps, it will be most difficult for them to navigate the ocean because on the ocean, you don't have any landmarks to say that I am traveling east, I'm traveling west. But there must be a way of them being able to navigate. And so cartography is important. A geographer, therefore, is a person who asks questions about the significance of place, location, distance, direction, spread, and spatial succession. That is who a geographer is. Aside being the person who studies the description of the earth, when you break it down, these are the questions or the task of a geographer. The geographer also deals with problems of accessibility, innovation, diffusion, density, and other derivatives of relative location. So these are the tasks of a geographer, and that was what geography literally means. Now, every discipline, okay, now we are moving on to geography and social sciences. Geography and social sciences. Every discipline has a philosophy, which is the reason for that discipline. Okay, so the main reason or the ideology behind that particular discipline, okay, is the philosophy, which means that philosophy provides the root to a discipline and in the process of its evolution. All the social science disciplines, such as sociology, political science, economics, and demography, study different aspects of social reality. Sociology will, for instance, study human behavior. Political science will study politics and what have you. Economics will study demand and supply of resources and what have you. Demography will study population. Okay. Now, there's something that all of these things have in common. They all must be grounded in geography. because you can't talk about the human behavior and the sociology in abstract, because the behavior of West Africans is different from North Africans, and even different from Asians or Europeans or even Americans. Okay, and so attributing location to all of these social science discipline is the work of what? Geography. Remember, geography is all about location and spatial relationships. So when you talk about human behavior without properly attributing location to it, then where are you referring to? As I said, because behavioral differences or dynamics in human beings differ from place to place. It is the same thing under political science, because the sort of politics that it's practiced in one part of the world is different from a different part of the world. Okay, some even when you come to Ghana and Burkina Faso, for instance, we are Burkina Faso is just our neighbor. We share a border, but currently we are practicing different forms of politics, okay, or governance, as you may put it. Because Ghana is practicing democracy, they are practicing military rule. I think a hand is up. Amos, stay. Yes, Amos. Oh, Amos, your hand is up. Anyway, let's move on. The same as economics. For instance, economics talks about demand and supply. But demand and supply of what and where? Demand of resources by certain people in a different part of the world, essentially describing location. So embedded in all of these disciplines, all of these social science disciplines, is the concept of geography. So geography literally provides is more or less like the mother of all of these disciplines, because it is the one that provides the background for all of these other disciplines. I hope that is clear. All right. Now the branches of geography, including social, political, economic, and population, you see it. So the branches of geography include social, political, economic, and population. So all of these ones, they are branches of geography. Geography is the main tree, and they all describe different aspects of it. Okay, and they are all closely linked with the social science disciplines, as each of them has a what spatial attributes. Spatial here means location. Anywhere you see space, space is location. So each of these disciplines, social, political, economic, and population, has spatial attributes. All right. Okay. So this is an image literally describing all that I've said, or summarizing everything that I've said. In the center, you can see people, geography, and environment. Okay. When you talk about anthropology, anthropology describes human beings. Okay. Anything anthro is human. Okay, or anthropo is human, the study of human beings. And the study of human beings where? In a particular area, in a particular part of the earth. Okay, the same as history. History is literally abstract. But the moment you talk about certain locations, for instance, the First World War, you cannot describe the First World War without talking about certain important places. The Treaty of Versailles, the bombing of this place, and all. When the moment you mention a country, a location, a city, a town, then you have what attributed something of what location, which is the main idea behind geography. The same as cartography and GIS, geomorphology, oceanography, biogeography, economics, and then social geography under what? Sociology. So all of these things are branches of geography. So geography literally is in the center, and it is the one providing the background for all of these other subjects or other disciplines. Is that clear enough? Okay. Now let's end the first lecture with this particular slide. We take a break and then we come back. Now, for instance, economics deals with basic attributes of the economy, such as production, distribution, exchange, and consumption. Each of these economic attributes has spatial aspects which are well dealt with in economic geography. That is the study that studies the spatial aspects of production, distribution, exchange, and consumption. Let's break it down. Production. What are you producing? And remember, before you produce, you must have access to resources. Where are those resources gotten from? Remember the use of the word what? Where? Where directly leads you to what? Location. So production in itself is a locational something. The same as distribution. When I am distributing something to you, definitely I must know where you are. It must follow a particular direction. Okay, and that is all under what? Distribution, which means distribution in itself has the embedded concept of what? Geography in there or location in there. The same as exchange, the same as consumption. All the way reiterating the fact that what? Geography literally provides the background for many or almost all of these social sciences. Is that clear? All right. The same as the core concept of political science, which is territory, people, and sovereignty, which is closely related to political geography that deals with the study of the states as a spatial unit, as a locational unit. That is why, although you may go to a country like Nigeria, they have different states, Lagos State, Abuja State, Abia State, and all of those things. But there is one person in charge of the entire country, treating the entire place as what? One spatial unit. Is that clear? All right. So which means that geography has a strong interface with the natural and the social sciences. Geography has a strong linkage with all of these sciences. All right. And how do we visualize all of these things? We can be able to only visualize location in relation to economics, sociology, and all of these things through maps. Through maps. That is why there are maps for literally everything. Okay, we have population density maps in Ghana so that we can say that people in Accra are more than people in what? Kumasi, are more than people in Cape Coast. Okay, if we are referring to cases of HIV/AIDS, they can create a map for it. So which means that maps are very effective tools of geographers in which the tabular data is converted into a visual form to bring out spatial pattern. That is why we even have something we call what? An atlas. So in the atlas, you have several maps in there, political maps, I mean, a lot of them. A lot of them. And so do not, prior to this course, I understand that a lot of people may actually think of geography as towns and places. The capital city of Denmark is this, the capital of America. No, geography goes way beyond that, as you have seen today. Okay, so let's make a quick recap. How did we start? We started with the meaning of the word geography as defined by Eratosthenes. Okay, and he broke it down into two: geo and graphy. Graphy meaning description, geo meaning earth. So put together the description of the earth. And then we spoke of Homer as the first person who started geographical writings. Then we came up with the three geographical questions by these ancient Greek geographers. Okay, there were three questions. The first one was what? Where is it? Trying to understand location. And if you remember clearly, I emphasized that at that point, they said that they were using location through what we know as what? Relative location, using observable features to describe what we want to talk about. Okay, because they didn't have the tools at that time. They didn't have compass. They didn't have a GPS. No, so they were using relative location at that time. Then they later developed the grid system, and that was developed by a man named what? Hipparchus. Okay, the grid system is basically the combination of longitude and latitudes used to determine or measure accurate location, such that someone in China can send a bomb all the way to a particular place in the world, and it will hit that exact spot. Okay, so that was the first question. Where is it? The second question that they asked was what? What is it like? A question on what? Observation and perception. Trying to ascertain the magnitude of what has happened. All right. And then they did that through two main means, through concept and percept. Percept we said was what? The use of the direct senses for observation. So when you observe anything directly through the senses, when you see it, you smell it, and the like, you are doing what we will call what? A percept. But when you try to mentally create an image of something in your mind, then we are calling it what? A concept. All right. And then we came to the third question, which was what? What does it mean? Trying to understand orderliness, coherence, and harmony in the universe. All right. And so at that time, many of them actually attributed various earthly elements to certain supernatural beings, and even till date, some people still do. Okay, where there's a spiritual entity in charge of river bodies, in charge of earth productivity in terms of farming, the winds, and what have you. And if there happens to be confusion among these gods, the effects are felt through these natural disasters that we see. All right. And even in fact, sometimes when we are the ones who even offend them, they punish us. And when we appease them or when there is peace between them, then the effects are also felt in some form of peace and happiness through productivity and the like. All right. Okay. And then we came down and discussed a few other things, but we ended with the relationship between geography and the social sciences. Understanding that geography or the work of a geographer, first of all, is to be able to ask certain important questions on distance, on direction, on location, spatial succession, distribution, all of those things. Okay. But then we also understand that geography literally provides the backend for all these social sciences because, in essence, they would have been described in abstract terms. For instance, human behavior. But human behavior today we know differs from place to place, even in the same country. Okay, the behavior of the southerners, okay, this is quite different from the people in the north. The behavior of even on tribal basis, behaviors and attitudes are different. So sociology will literally be abstract, if not for location, which is described in what? Geography. The same as economics, when we talk about demand and supply, production, distribution, and all of those things. All of in each of those things under economics would be abstract, will be something we cannot comprehend, if not for location, which is the main essence in what? Geography. The same as population, the same as political science. Okay, so once again, geography provides the backing or the background for all of these social sciences. Are we clear? Lars, are we clear? Perfect.
Yes, sir.
Please.
All right. Please
Yes,
do you?
please.
Yes,
Great, great, great. So I think the time now is 8:38. I think once we are done with the first lecture, let's give ourselves, or should we continue? So that when it is 9:30 thereabouts, we can then go for a break and then return. Should we continue?
Let's continue.
All right, let's continue. All right. So, yes, Madam Selina, your hand is up.
Oh no, sir. I was trying to give a notice that we should continue. Sorry.
Okay, okay, okay. But I hope you are enjoying the class. I hope it is. I know it's a little abstract, but I hope everybody is following along and everything is
Of
going
course,
good.
we may have to put in more effort. We may have to put in more effort. This one we have to read intensively. It's not easy.
Yes,
Sir,
exactly.
you share the slide with us. Sir.
I will do that. I'll definitely do that. I'll definitely do that.
Okay.
But just stick with me and everything will be clear. That is why I go over it every now and then. I go back to recap so that everything will be made clearer for you. All right. So just stick with me.
All right, thank
And if your husband or your wife is disturbing you this early morning, tell them we are doing due thoughts. Due thought does not allow for all
thank
of
you,
this.
sir.
Yes. Yes. All right. Thank you. Now let's move on to classical geographic thoughts. Now, in this particular chapter, we are going to mention or discuss or describe a number of these Greek geographers. Remember, when we began, I said that geography literally or almost began in Greece by the Greeks because they were the first people to try and be doing something geographic. All right. And so we are going to discuss a number of these people and their contributions to geography. A number of them, quite a lot of them. Okay. And I know for sure because I have taught this course for a while now, and I have marked a lot, and I know that a question on the discussion of some of these people usually comes in an exam. Yes. And so it is important that you pay rapt attention. If you don't understand, if you are confused, you let me know. So under lecture 2, we are going to talk about classical geographic thoughts. That is geography in the classical era. Now, the classical period extends for thousands of years, from the shadowy beginnings of geographical thoughts to the year 1859. To the year 1859. So this period ended about 200 years ago. Do you understand? Because now we are in 2025. So about 200 or so years ago, that was when the classical period was ended, if I'm not telling lies. No, I think it should be more than that. No, it's more than that. Anyway, let's let's stick to that. All right. Now, even in the 18th century, when the separation of fields of study had begun, remember, under the first slide, in the first chapter, we spoke about the breaking down of the academic world into various disciplines. Okay, that started in the 16th century and ended somewhere in the 19th century. It says that even in the 18th century, when the separation of fields of study had begun, there existed scholars such as Benjamin Franklin, Lomonosov, and Montesquieu, who are usually not known as geographers, but nevertheless are important links in the history of geographical ideas. Now, the year 1859 functions as a significant divide, and it is recognized as the end of the classical period because of a number of reasons we'll talk about later. I don't want to burden you with these things, but just understand that the beginning of geography, there's no particular year that we can say it began because records are not there. But what we can tell you is that, or what we can know is that it ended, or the classical period ended in the year 1859. That is the first point you are going to make. The second point is that the very first person who is usually accredited with the history of geography is the man called Homer. Homer. Now, pay rapt attention. The Greek geographers, not general geographers, but the Greek geographers, they credit Homer with being the father of geography. So according to the Greeks in Greece, which is in Europe, okay, they credit Homer, or they say that Homer is the father of geography. And why do you think they will do so? Because he was the one who was the first to start with geographical writings. So the first geographical writing was attributed to him. And so according to the Greeks, he was the father of geography. Now, this poet, whose existence is not known for certain, okay, because some people actually believe he was not real, but whose existence was not known for certain, was the compiler of the long epic poem called the Iliad. The Iliad, which describes episodes of the Trojan War sometime between 1280 and 1180 BC. All right, before Christ. I know some of you may be a little confused. Why is it 1280 to 1180? Does it mean that 1280 came before 1180? Yes, exactly. So in the year calculation, let me branch a little to make a little explanation for you. So when we are calculating years in history, and we mentioned BC, BC is before Christ, as I said. So 1280, 1180, 1080 or 1080, 980, and then it begins to reduce till it gets to what? 1 BC. So which means just a year before the birth of Christ. And then it continues, and then when we begin the AD, then the AD starts in ascending order. I hope you are getting it. So this one is the BC is usually sort of a descending order. So before 1280, there would have been what? 1380, 1480, like that. I hope you are getting it clearly. All right. That was just by the way for your understanding. Now, as we said, Homer was the one who started with geographical writings, and he wrote 2 books. One was the Iliad, which described episodes of the Trojan War. You must understand that at this point there were a lot of battles and wars that were fought. Okay, a lot of battles and wars that were fought around that time to assert dominance, who is king, who is more powerful, and all of those things. One of those books that people wrote was written by Homer called the Iliad, and this described the war. Now you must be wondering, how is a war even important to geography? How is it important? Some people are fighting, killing each other, and it is being attributed to geography. Well, you must understand that embedded in there were description of places. Because, for instance, a war will be fought at a particular place, in a particular city, in a particular time. Okay, for instance, the war was fought along the shores of the Red Sea. What are they doing? They are describing a place. Now, if he should have, for instance, even added the fact that the climate of the place around that time was quite hot, the temperature was hot around that time, what is he doing? He's trying to describe climate through what? Meteorology or climatology. If he even tries to describe the sort of vegetation that was in there, he's still describing what? Location. All amidst the fighting that he's trying to describe. And so that is why they attribute geographical writings to him. So it is not our typical sort of geography where he's going to be specific about this or that. He was just narrating what had happened. But subtly embedded in there were geographical descriptions. I hope you are getting it clearly. All right. Now, his earliest major literary work of Greek history was probably put together during the 9th century before Christ. As we said, he wrote 2 books. Someone's microphone is on. Try and mute yourself. Madam Sarah, you will see, please, your microphone is on. Thank you. The Odyssey. So that was the second book that he wrote. He wrote 2 books. One was the Iliad. The second book was what? The Odyssey. Now, this is a geographical account of the fringes of the known world. So one thing that you must understand is that the Greeks were people who did not like to explore. They were not people who like to go far away beyond their domain or their country. They like to stay where they are, but they must still know what is around them. And so Homer, through the book The Odyssey. Now let me tell you exactly what the Odyssey is about. The Odyssey is the return from the war that was fought, the Trojan War. It is about a man who was traveling back, all the things that he saw, the highlands, the lowlands, the power interplay between one group and the other. All of those things were described in the book called The Odyssey. Odyssey is literally the return. Okay, so the two books are not different, they are linked. The Iliad itself described the war that was fought, where it was fought, the sort of things that occurred, and all of those things. Now, he wrote a second poem called the Odyssey, which was about one of the soldiers on his return back to his hometown and all that he encountered. Is that okay? So, this is the reason why the Greek geographers credit Homer with being the father of geography, because he was the first person to have started writing certain things about geography or certain geographic related things. Remember, at this point, if you decided to be an academic up until the 17th and the 16th century, if you wanted to be an academic, you study everything. And so there was no single person who was called a geographer. So Homer himself at that time, he was not known as a geographer because there was nothing like geography. But I hope you are getting the story clear. All right. But he was the first person to write geographical writings. And so he was, if we are going to go by anything that we learned in the first chapter, he's also part of what? The literary tradition. Remember the two traditions of geography, the mathematical tradition and the literary tradition. The convener of the literary tradition was what? Homer. All right. Now, the Odyssey offers evidence to suggest that the poet was indeed describing the passage of Messina or an island off the coast of Africa or other well-known localities. So, as I said, some the soldiers returned from the war that was fought in Troy. Okay, on his way back, the description of all the areas that he saw was what was compiled in the Odyssey. All right. Now, secondly, so the first thing that we know how many things about Homer now. We know about 3 or 4 things. The fact that one, he's the one who is credited by the Greek geographers as being the father of geography, simply because he was the first writer of geographic writings, literally. Okay. Secondly, we can also say that he's the beginner or the convener of the literary tradition. Thirdly, we can also say he wrote 2 books, the Iliad, which describes episodes of the Trojan War. Next, we can also say he wrote the Odyssey, which was a description of the soldiers' return from the war that was fought. Okay, so we know about 4 things about Homer. Please, I hope you are writing some things down. Okay. Now, Greek sailors in the 8th century BC, they had no way of identifying directions at sea except by reference to the winds and associated weather types. So in Homer's time, distinguished 4 directions. As we said, if you remember, when we're talking about the where is it question, we said that they were trying to understand location. But location for people like the sailors at that time will be most difficult. People on the land will have it a little easier because there are landmarks like the hills, the forests, the rivers, and what have you. But people on the ocean, how would they be able to define location and direction? Okay, so they came up with 4 directions based on the winds and weather types. 4 directions based on the winds and weather types. Number 1, they had what? Boreas. Boreas, which was the north wind, which was cool, which was strong, cool with clear skies. So this is what it means. It means that when they are traveling, they don't know where they are going. They don't know which direction they are heading towards. But when they encounter a type of wind that is strong, that is cool, and they can observe clear skies, there are no clouds to obstruct the sun or whatever, they know they are traveling in what? In the northern direction. Because the characteristics of the north wind is that it is strong, it is cool with clear skies. Okay, let me reiterate the fact that they didn't know exactly where they were going. But when they encounter a type of wind that was strong, cool with clear skies, they knew they were traveling in what? In the northern direction. And so they named that wind what? The Boreas. That wind was called what? Boreas. Now, the second wind was Eurus. Eurus. Now, this was the east wind, which was warm and gentle. So when they were traveling, they didn't know where they were. or where they were heading towards, the direction they were going. But when they encounter a type of wind which was warm, which was gentle, they knew they were traveling where? In the eastern direction because of the characteristics of that wind. Okay, the east wind had characteristics of being warm and gentle. Then came the south wind, called what? Notus. Notus or Notus, however you want to pronounce it is fine. Notus or Notus, okay? Now, this was the south wind on the front of an advancing storm, which was wet and sometimes violent. So they might be traveling, and then suddenly they'll start encountering a type of wind which was wet and sometimes violent, like a storm. Okay, the waves will go high and low and be raising them up and down, destroying things. When they encounter that, they know they are traveling what? In the southern direction because they are facing what? The south wind. And then the last one was the Zephyrus or the Zephyrus, which was the west wind. It was balmy but with gale force. It was very strong, but it was cool. It was cool but very, very strong. And so they knew that they were traveling in what? In the western direction. So these are the four wind directions developed in the time of Homer by the Greek sailors: the Boreas, Eros, Notus, and the Zephyrus. Now, I created a short acronym for this called BENZ. So if you forget about anything, you say BENZ. So BENZ is what? Boreas, Eros, Notus, Zephyrus, which was basically describing the four wind systems. I have an image here to show you. Let me see if it is going to be projected. Give me a minute to get it clear. Um, Unfortunately, I think my screen is not allowing me to share it with you. Okay, I had an image to show you of the Boreas or the four wind directions, but my screen is not permitting me to show you. Unfortunately, I don't know why. But let me see once again for the last time if I can see it here. Unfortunately, my screen is not permitting me to show you, but it was just a simple image to help you understand the four wind directions. Okay, let's just move on. I hope I will be able to show it to you at another time. Okay. I don't know if you can see, I have just tried to project something to the screen. Have you seen the image there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. So as you can see here, you can see Boreas over here to the north. Remember, at this time, the cardinal points had not yet been developed. So Boreas was to the north. So when they encountered the type of wind that was calm with clear skies and all of those things, they knew they were traveling the northern direction. And that wind was what? Boreas. The same thing as Eros. Okay, warm and gentle. It was Euros. Then came Notos. Notos was on the front of an advancing storm, which was wet and sometimes was violent. And they knew they were traveling what? South. So you can see north here, east here with the E, south here. Okay, that was Notos. And the Zephyrus was what? West. So this was literally what they were doing. Remember, didn't have any image or any tool to define direction for themselves. So they tried to use the four wind directions to determine direction and location. All right. Okay. Much later in the 2nd century BC, the Athenians built a tower identifying 8 wind directions. So first they started with 4 wind directions, the bends as we know it. So please never forget the bends. I have also seen that question somewhere. I don't remember where, but a word to the wise is enough. Now, much later, they came up with an additional 4 to make a total of what? 8 wind directions. And this is still reflecting in the sort of cardinal points that we have today, because now we have not just the north, south, east, and west. Today we have northeast, we have southeast, we have southwest, and then what? Northwest. So another 4 directions added to the four earlier ones to make a total of what? 8. In fact, the tower that they built is still standing in the midst of a Roman market at the base of the Acropolis. And then the name Europe was applied to the shore of the Aegean Sea towards the setting sun. And then Asia was applied to the shore towards the rising sun. In fact, when you go to Japan, what is Japan said to be? They say Japan is what? The land of the rising sun. I hope you remember, you can attest to all of those facts. Okay, so they are, according to them, the area or the point where the sun was rising from was Asia, and the place that the sun was setting was what? Europe. So which means at this time, in the time of Homer, at least we can be confident to say that Africa was not yet explored fully. And so you will even come to find out that Africa was called Libya at that time. The continent of Africa at that time was called what? Libya. All right. So these are characteristics of Homer, or these are the contributions of Homer and the Greeks around this time. The first was that he was the first person to start geographical writings. He came up with 2 books, that's the Iliad and the Odyssey. The Iliad describing episodes of the Trojan War that was fought. And remember the description I gave, the fact that it was not just the description of someone cutting someone's head off, or the nice armor and the sorry, the things that they were wearing. No, it was rather about the setting that was being described, the place that the war was fought, the sort of climate and the temperature that was going on around that time. Okay, that was the Iliad. Then the second book, or the second poem, which was the Odyssey, was the return of a soldier from the battle that was fought back to his hometown. And all of those things that he saw was then documented into the book of what? The Odyssey. And then secondly, or the next, we said that there were 4 wind directions that were used at that time by the sailors for directional purposes. Okay, and so we came up with what? Bends. B for Boreas, E for Eros, N for Notos, then Z for what? Zephyrus. Then later they added another additional 4 wind directions to what they already had, making a total of 8, which is still reflecting the sort of directions that we have even till date. Okay, All right. So we are done with Homer. Remember, according to the Greeks, Homer was the first, or is the father of geography. Now, we come to three people. How I like to describe them as the three musketeers. Okay. Now, these three people are grouped together because uh, they share the same town. But before we get here, if you have a pen and a paper, I want you to write certain things down to make it easier for you to learn when you are describing these people. Okay. Number one, you can write an introduction. An introduction. So one is an introduction, and the introduction should contain, of course, the name of the person, the year the person was born, the background behind the person. If he was a farmer, if he was whatever he was, you try and describe it. Okay, you state it. The next, you talk about the body. In the body, you talk about his contributions. You talk about his contributions. Okay, you list about 3 or 4 of them, and you discuss it. You don't just state it, but you discuss. Alright, okay. Remember, all of these descriptions, all these narratives I'm giving you, I should be seeing them when, if it happens that it comes to an exam, you write it at a remark, and I should be seeing all of these things in there. All right. And then the third thing, you talk about a conclusion. So sometimes some of these people are criticized for certain things that they did, certain contributions they made. Some people come in and criticize them. So lastly, you can talk about criticisms. Okay, as your conclusion. All right. Some of them may have all of these elements in there. Homer, for instance, his age and those things are not present in there. So it is absent. So you stick to what has been provided. But for some of them, their ages are provided, the year they began, whatever they did, the books they wrote, all of those things are provided. So you write them accordingly. To an introduction, the body, conclusion. Introduction containing the name, the age, the background. If the person had a work, you can say that. Okay. You can even talk about the fact that they belong to either the mathematical tradition or the literary tradition. Also in there as part of the introduction. The body will talk about the contributions of the person to geography. About 3, 4, 5 points under that, well explained. Lastly, talk about your conclusion, and then you are good to go. I hope everybody wrote something down. Okay, that was just by the way. Now, to the three musketeers or the three best friends, they are all from the same town. These three people are all from the same particular town. The town is a town called what? Miletus. 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 And so they always say a name like Tales of Miletus. Tales of Miletus, Anaximander of Miletus, Hecatius of Miletus, but usually they are not added. It is only tales that they usually attribute of Miletus to. So Tales of Miletus, Anaximander and Hecatius, their names are just as they are. Okay, so tales, Anaximander, and then Hecatius. All right, please take note of the spellings. So one of the earliest centers of Greek learning was the town of Miletus in Ionia on the eastern side of the Aegean Sea near the mouth of the Meander River. So all these three people come from a particular town, or they originate from a particular town called Miletus. Now, this place at a point in time was the center of knowledge or learning in in Greece, right? Now, Miletus became a major center of commerce and attracted Phoenician and Greek ships from all around the Mediterranean and the Black Sea. Now, this is important because it is giving you the background as to the knowledge these people eventually possessed. Because if where they are coming from is the center of learning, of academic and the commerce, it means that there was a lot of knowledge to be gained from that place. Okay, because it was the gathering, or it was the point of gathering of a lot of intellectuals. I hope you get it. All right. Let's talk about Thales. Thales was the first Greek scholar to be concerned about the measurement and location of things on the face of the earth. What does this mean? It means that he was attributed towards the mathematical tradition. So you get how the narratives are being unraveled. Okay, so he was concerned about measurements. And remember, the geographic traditions are two: literary, mathematical. So if you are part of the literary, it means that you were doing something related to Homer, like the writings and the descriptions and what have you. But once you were doing something that included measurements, like numbers, angles, and all of those things, then you were doing part of what? Mathematical tradition. All right. Now, Thales lived between the 7th and the 6th century BC. So, which means at least for Thales of Miletus, his introduction is complete. The background is there, as in his hometown, Miletus. You can give the description of his hometown. You can also talk about the fact that he was born or he lived between 6th and the 7th century BC. In fact, he was one of the first people concerned with the measurements and the location of things on the surface of the earth, meaning that he was part of what? The mathematical tradition. Now, still under his introduction, you can talk about the fact that he was a practical businessman at one time who was able to help with the supply of olive oil to make a large profit for himself. This means that this person was not a typical geographer, like you may be thinking of, that all that he does is geography. No, he was just a businessman. He was who was interested in what? Olive oil, to make money. Just as today we have a lot of the ladies here are into imports and exports. They'll be buying the bags and the shoes and be selling to their colleagues, and yeah. So Thales was also a businessman. Now, at one point in time, this man, Thales of Miletus, traveled to Egypt. And then he observed that the priests at work, they were measuring angles and baselines and computing areas. So the people of Egypt at that time were one of the most advanced people on the earth. Okay, they had what we call the Egyptian civilization. So at that time, knowledge was well concentrated in that area. They were very intellectual, very brilliant, very intelligent people. And so they were using angles at that time. Before the birth of Christ, they were computing angles to define areas and all of those things, because they were today we know that Egypt is one of the best agricultural countries in the world. So which means that land barriers and land boundaries must be clearly defined. How would they do that? They will do that through the measuring of angles and to compute areas. Do you understand? So Thales of Miletus' opponents traveled to Egypt, saw the priest at work doing those things with certain tools. And then, being an intellectual, he returned to Miletus with his head full of mathematical and geometrical regularities that went far beyond the practical utility of trigonometry. So we are using big words here, but just take it easy. So this literally meant that after all that he saw, he came back with certain ideas in his head, mathematical ideas that he was going to use to make certain propositions or certain statements, some of which even to date we are still able to use. All right. What are these? He came up with 6 geometric propositions. Now, the first one is that the circle is divided into 2 equal parts by its diameter. So this basic mathematics that we learned in JHS and SHS using the protractor and the compass and all of those things, yes, if I remember correctly, construction, yes. All of those things, it was started by who? Thales of Miletus. Okay, so he divided a circle into 2 equal parts by its diameter. So then any line that divides the circle into 2 equal parts, it's a diameter. And by extension, any line from the center to the circle, to the line or the circumference of the circle or the perimeter of the circle is called what? A radius. So 2 radiuses will then give you what? The diameter. I hope that is clear. All right. Now, The angles at either end of the base of an isosceles triangle are equal. What is an isosceles triangle? An isosceles triangle is one that has two sides and two angles equal. So which means the base angles at least will be equal. And this is true because we even use it to date. Circle theorem. Mathematics. I know I'm taking you back to SHS and JHS, but stick with me. All right. So that is also true. Thirdly, he says that when two parallel lines are crossed diagonally by a straight line, the opposite angles are equal. So you have two lines moving parallel. Let me see if I can help you visualize this. Let me see. So let's say these are parallel lines. Okay, I'm using my laptop to draw, so stick with me. Let's say these are parallel lines. When it is crossed by a diagonal line, okay, the opposite angles are what? Equal. So these angles are equal. So if this angle is, let's say, 70 degrees, here is also what? 70 degrees. Do you understand? And so this is even something that we still use till date. All right. The next one says that the angle in a semicircle is a right angle. The sides of similar triangles are proportional. Two triangles are congruent if they have two angles and a side respectively equal. All of these things are still in use till date. What is the importance of these 6 geometric propositions? The fact that they are used in determining land boundaries to date, because those of you who have ever who own parcels of land or are constructing and doing certain things, you realize that the surveyor will be drawing certain things on a piece of paper using angles and all of those things, and all of those things are built on the foundation of these 6 geometric principles or propositions. Is that okay? All right. Now, it says that his most important contribution was the recognition that solutions of practical, excuse me. All right. His most important contribution was his recognition that the solution of practical problems of measurement was less of an intellectual accomplishment rather than a rational generalization of specific solutions. When you have a problem with regards to areas or land or what have you, it is not about how intelligent you are. It is rather about how well you are able to measure using these geometric propositions. Remember, he himself, he was not a mathematician or a geographer. He was a businessman. But upon going to Egypt, seeing what they were doing with angles and all of those things, he came up with geometric propositions. And then he said, it is not about being so intelligent, talking about philosophy and no. It is about how well you are able to apply measurements from certain generalizations that you are going to make from measurements that you've already made. I hope that is clear. So the practical problems of measurement was less of an intellectual accomplishment. It's not about how intelligent you are or how much school you've gone to. It is about how well you are able to apply even the little that you know. Okay? All right. Now, Thales also made contributions in astronomy and reported on the magnetism of the lodestone. And then lastly, he visualized the Earth as a disk floating in water. So he was one of the first people to believe that the Earth was what? Flat. Not only was the Earth flat, it was flat and floating in water. So according to him, the Earth was flat in the center, and then water was all around it, like the ocean was all around it. So this is the contributions of, or these are the contributions of Thales to geography. Remember, it started by saying he was part of the three people from Miletus. Miletus, at a point in time, was the center of academic world, okay, academic knowledge, which means that people from different areas came to share knowledge at that particular place, essentially meaning it was a civilization. Now, uh, it goes on to say that he was a simple businessman, okay, who was at a point in time involved in the supply of olive oil. Now, in one of his travels, he came to Egypt, or he went to Egypt, and he saw something interesting, the fact that the Egyptian priests were working with angles and baselines just to compute areas, mostly for agriculture and property lines. All right. So he returned to Greece with his, or to Miletus with his mind full of uh, academic knowledge or mathematical ideas, which he then converted into six geometric principles called the six principles of what? Tales of Miletus. Now, those six of them are important, especially when you are computing for areas, for angles, and what have you. But his most important contribution was the fact that he said that it is not just about knowing, it is about application. For instance, when you're talking about measurement, it's not about knowing, but how well you are able to apply even the little that you know. Is that fine? And then he contributed to the astronomy, and then one of the first people to also visualize the Earth as a disk floating on water. In fact, much later, they would, in their own way, try to understand that the Earth was not flat like a disk, but rather spherical, like a ball. Is that okay? All right. Then we come to the second person from Miletus. And I must emphasize that this particular person, I have seen his a lot of questions come under him. So you will do well to pay attention and then listen. Now, his name is Anaximander. So for him as well, if you want to give a background to him, you can use the same background from Miletus, as Miletus being the center of knowledge at a point in time in Greece. But he is credited with introducing a Babylonian instrument known as the gnomon. The gnomon, that's the Gnomon, into the Greek world. Now, this is simply a pole that is set vertically above a flat surface on which the varying position of the sun would be measured by the length and the direction of the shadow cast by the vertical pole. So it's like you get a flat stone or a flat surface, and then you mount a pole on it. Then you place it outside, and then you sort of observe it at different times in the day. The position that it will tell you can give you a rough estimate of the time. So some people even in Ghana in the olden days used to do this, and a lot of you here when you were kids might have also done that. Playing on the field, you put a broomstick or a stick in the earth, and then when it is showing you, you can be able to read it and say it's around this time. It is almost evening or it's in the afternoon because of the shadow that was cast. Okay. Now today we call that instrument the sundial. I think I also have an image here to show you what the sundial is. Let me see. Can you see it on your screen?
Yes, sir.
All right. So this is typically what we are referring to when we talk about the sundial or the gnomon. So this was the instrument that he introduced. The fact that it is just a flat surface or a flat stone on top. The surface is flat, and it had a pole inserted into the center. But you can see there are certain inscriptions over there, and that is what they are able to use to tell time. So the shadow that you are seeing over here, is what is used to tell the time or the season. In fact, sometimes they're even able to use it to tell or to estimate the season, if it is summer, if it is winter, and what have you. All right. Okay. Now, from the noon on, it was possible to make a variety of observations. Noon could be established by noting when the shadow was shortest. So when the shadow that was cast by the pole on the flat surface was the shortest, they know that it is noon because the sun is almost vertical in the sky, vertically overhead in the sky, which means that the shadow that will be cast will be quite short. Okay. The noon shadow provided an exact north to south line or the meridian. And then the noon shadow varied from season to season, being the shortest at summer solstice and the longest at the winter solstice. Now, by observing the direction of the shadow at sunrise and sunset, it was possible to establish the time of the equinox. And we already know what equinox and what's the name, solstice are. Remember from physical geography, equinox refer to the periods of equal hours of daylight and nighttime. So 12 hours apiece. So 12 hours of daylight, 12 hours at nighttime. But the solstice is where usually there is a variation or a disparity between the hours of daylight and nighttime. So where you have longer days, shorter nights, or shorter days, longer nights. Do you understand? All right. Now, again, Anaximander is the first ever geographer to draw the map of the world to scale. This is very important as a point. Okay, aside bringing in the instruments, the normal that today we call the sundial, and all the description and narrates, we are also informed that he is the first ever geographer to draw the map of the world to scale. That is Anaximander. Ladies and gentlemen, I have seen this question pop up somewhere before. A word to the wise is enough. All right. There are certain things that we must know about a map. A map is usually having certain important characteristics. A map has a title. A map has a legend to describe what you are seeing in the map. Sometimes you have a map that has green, red, and blue. The green have significance. They represent something on the ground, maybe vegetation. The red can be earth or bare areas. The blue can be water bodies. So a map must have a legend. Okay. And the map must also have what? A scale. The scale will tell the relationship between what is on the ground and what is on the map. Usually, the larger the scale, the smaller the area on the ground. And the smaller the scale, the larger the area on ground. Okay. And so if he says that he was the first geographer to draw the map of the world to scale, which means that this map was a little more accurate than what was there before, because it included a scale. Now, his map had Greece in the center, and other parts of Europe and Asia known to the Greeks were plotted around it. Okay, but to make a difference, if you remember, we said the Sumerians had also drawn maps, but their maps were more or less pictorial maps because they lacked scale and directions. Okay, so they said that the Sumerians had drawn pictorial maps of some of their cities as early as 2700 BC, but a true map must show distance and directions to scale. Is that clear? So Anaximander was also the first person to draw the map of the world to scale after he had introduced the sundial or the gnomon into the Greek society. Right. Now, Anaximander's map was circular and bound all the way around by the ocean. Those with the book, I'm sure you have your images in there. Those without the books, I will upload the image in there for you to see, but the slide will also be given to you after the lecture. But let's see. Okay, so to those who can see my screen, you can see Anaximander's map in there. It said that it had Greece in the center. So Greece is located somewhere around here. Okay, somewhere around here. If you can see my arrow. Okay, somewhere around here. And then you have Asia and Europe plotted around it. But there's an interesting land continent that is showing here to the south west, okay, which is Libya. this was what they referred to Africa around that time. Okay, so you have Europe, Asia, and Libya over here with Greece somewhere in the center. But also, at this point, similar to Tales of Miletus, Anaximander still believed that the earth was flat with the ocean around it, just as Tales of Miletus had said. I hope you are getting there, you are drawing the linkages over there. So the earth flat in the center with the ocean surrounding it like a disc floating on what? Water. Is that okay? All right. It goes on to say that Thales and Anaximander can be recognized as the originators of the mathematical tradition in the study of geography. Remember the traditions of geography, mathematical and literal. The first literary tradition originator was what? Homer. And the first two originators of the mathematical traditions are what? Thales and Anaximander. Is that clear? All right. So it is now 9:30, and I know that today we've done a lot. At this point, you may be a little tired and confused. I will pause here so that we'll go for a 10 minutes break. You can go and rejoin later, but I would advise that you join. You remain here so that you don't go off or find problem in rejoining. So if that is the case, we'll converge here at exactly 9:40. Should we make it 10 minutes or 15 minutes?
15 minutes, please.
10 minutes or 15 minutes, class?
50 minutes.
10 minutes.
SMR.
15 minutes, please.
50 minutes, please.
Okay, let's make it 15 minutes. You can go and do whatever you want to do with your husband or your wife, and then we come back. Okay, thank you.
With our children.
Via the SMR.
Hello, everybody. Are we on break?
Yes, Florence, we are on break till 9:45. We'll resume at 9:45.
Okay.
Yes,
Hello, sir. Please, I just want to know if this lesson is being recorded
yes,
because
it's
some of
being
us didn't
recorded.
start with you.
You are safe. It's being recorded.
Okay.
Oh,
All
you're
right. Thank
welcome.
you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, our 15 minutes is up. Those of you who want to do things with your children and your husbands and your wives, your time is up. Let's prompt our colleagues to all join. At the peak of the meeting, we were around 90 people. We're averaging 94, 95. So please, I want to see the entire number back here. Please, can you all hear me? All right. So please tell your colleagues that
Yes,
they
please.
must all join.
We're back. Into joining.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. As we wait for everyone else to join, uh, let's make another quick recap of where we left off. We started with the classical era, and then we said that in the classical era of geography, we begin from the shadowy beginnings of geography because there's no specific year that we can say geography started. But what we can be sure of is that the classical era of geography ended in the year 1859. Please, I have seen that question also come somewhere before, usually in the section A, to make a point over there as well. And then we also said that the first geographer we considered the father of geography was Homer. Why did we do that? We said that was because he was the one who started geographical writings. In fact, he wrote two books, the Iliad and the Odyssey. The Iliad describing certain episodes of the Trojan War and other issues, geographical issues, if you remember what I said. And then we also spoke of the Odyssey. The Odyssey was about the return of one of the soldiers of the war and all that he encountered, all that he saw, and how he reported them. Also, around that time, the Greek sailors discovered four wind directions to aid them in navigation and direction. And then we said those, we acronized it as what? Bends. So that's the Boreas, E for Eros, N for Notus, then Z for Zephyrus. All right. Then we went ahead to talk about the fact that later on they even brought about four additional wind directions to make it with a total of 8. So that was about Homer. Secondly, we spoke about the three people from Miletus. Three people from Miletus. The first was what? Anaximander. But before that, we argued that Miletus was one of the centers of academic world or academic knowledge at that time. And that was true because it attracted academics and traders from different parts of the world to that place. And so this place was one of the centers of academic knowledge. But three people came out of that community or that town or that city. The first was Thales. Thales was a businessman who at a point in time was involved in the supply of olive oil. Now this man later on traveled to Egypt. And upon traveling to Egypt, he saw the sort of work that the Egyptian priests were doing with angles and baselines and what have you. And so he returned to Miletus with a lot of ideas in his mind. Now, those ideas he later converted into what? The 6 geometric principles, which we went through. All right. He was also the first person, Thales was one of the first people to visualize the earth as a disk floating in water. One of the first people to do so. Then came the second person from Miletus called Anaximander or Anaximander. Now, this man was responsible for introducing the Babylonian instrument called the gnomon into the Greek society. Now, this instrument was a simple instrument with a rock with a flat top that had inscriptions on it, and then they set a vertical pole in the middle. Now, the role of this gnomon was to tell time, exactly when it was noon, when it was midday, when it was morning, or just time. Okay, and the noon was established when the shadow was shortest. So when the shadow was shortest on the pole, it means that it was what? Noon, or it was midday. Today we call that instrument what? The sundial. Then we also spoke about the fact that Anaximander was the first person to introduce or to create or to draw a map of the world to scale. And I explained what the scale is. Okay, another element of the map, which means that this was a better map that was drawn as compared to what the Sumerians had drawn in the year 27,000 BC. Their maps were more or less pictorial maps, but not detailed maps. Okay, then we also said that Anaximander's map was circular and bounded all the way around by the ocean. And then the two of them, the tales of Miletus and Anaximander, were the two people who are credited with the origination of the mathematical tradition of geography. So that was where we ended. So we are picking it up from there. So we will do 3 more people in addition, and then we'll call it a day. We'll do 3 more people in addition and call it a day. All right. So we come to the third person from Miletus. The third person from Miletus. Now, Hecatius was born at the time of the deaths of Thales and Anaximander. So, which means that at the time that he was born, these were about dying or had died in the year 475 BC. So, at least we know the year that he was born. Then, Hecatius was the first to collect and classify the information brought to Miletus not only from the world of the Greeks, but also from the shadowy world beyond Greek horizons. This alone should indicate to you the tradition that you belong to, because he was a collector and a classifier of information. So which area would he belong to? The literary tradition. Now, he wrote 2 proses. One of them accredited to him was the Ges Periodos, or the description of the earth. Okay, just another word for the description of the earth. Now, Hecatius divided his work into 2 parts, one dealing with one of the regional divisions of the earth. One book dealt with Europe and the other with the rest of the world. So he divided his work into 2. Then you remember he wrote 2 books, similar to what Homer did. But one book dealt with Europe. One book dealt with Europe as part of where Greek was part of, and the other book was a description of the rest of the world, where we had what Asia and Libya. As I mentioned to you, at that time Africa was not Africa, but what Libya. All right. Now he followed what was apparently already tradition in separating Europe from Asia along the Hellesponts, the Euxine, and the Caucasus Mountains, which was connected with the surrounding ocean. Now, in contrast to the approaches of these scholars of Miletus more than 24 centuries ago, illustrates the apparent difference between those who seek to formulate generalizations and those who seek to describe unique things. Now, if you remember this, we spoke about the fact that we discussed deductive and inductive reasonings, or procedures. If you remember, one by Aristotle, one by Plato. Plato came up with what? The deductive procedures. Aristotle came up with the inductive procedures. Okay. Yes. So among these people, among these 3 people, some were in support of what's the name? Deductive procedures. Some were also in support of the deductive procedures. But these 3 people, all you must know is that they are from the same town. They are from the same city of Miletus. The one that you should pay attention most to would be Anaximander, because his contributions were quite major. And then you can come to Tales of Miletus. Hecatius, just 1 or 2 information about him. But you must also bear in mind Hecatius is part of what? The literary tradition, whereas Tales of Miletus and Anaximander will be part of what? Mathematical tradition. All right. Is there a question? Yes, Ame.
Yeah, sir, please, I want you to repeat what you were laying emphasis on.
Which one was that? Same, I said a lot too. I can't. I don't remember which parts you
He said
were.
we should pay attention to one of these.
Okay, I was saying, yeah, okay, thank you. I was saying that among the three of them, okay, lay a little more emphasis on Anaximander, and if
Okay.
anything, Tales of Miletus, because of their contributions. Their contributions were quite major. And so if you want to study someone for the section B, if you want to study for an exam, okay, lay more emphasis on Anaximander, and then maybe uh, um, Tales of Miletus. That is for the three people from Miletus, okay? Lay more emphasis on
Okay.
Anaximander, all right?
Okay. Thank you.
Sure, thank you very much. Now, we come to the next person. The next person, we have Herodotus. Some of the names are similar, but they are different people. Herodotus is also very important to geography because he made one of the most profound statements that even to date is still used in geography. Now, his world history included were description of the places he had visited and the people whose custom he had observed and recorded. So off the top of your head, this means that this person will be part of what? The literary tradition. Because he was making measurements, he was just making observations and then recording them into books, definitely. And so he will be part of what? The literary tradition. Herodotus is usually described as the first great historian. Historian. So another question can pop up in your section A. Who is known as the first great historian? And the answers are there. Maybe Homer, Eratosthenes, Hecatius, and then Herodotus. The answer is what? Herodotus. If you are asked the first person to write graphical writings, the answer is Homer. All right. Okay. And his work was the first masterpiece of Greek prose. Also going to reiterate the fact that he was part of what the literary tradition. Now he is also credited with the idea that all history must be treated geographically, and all geography must be treated what? Historically. Let me make this thing bold for you to pay attention to it. This statement, it can come. Who is credited with saying that all history must be treated geographically and vice versa? Herodotus. Let me break this statement down. As I said, history will be abstract if not for the geographical context that is given to it. Imagine narrating the First World War, the Second World War, or the Sargenti War without mentioning places where the wars were fought, the landmarks around those areas. Imagine narrating the story to someone without those areas. It will be abstract. The person will not understand fully what is going on. And so for all history, it must be treated geographically. So which means a locational dimension must be added to history. And then all geography must as well must be treated historically, because before you must understand what is currently happening, why there's a land formation going on now, you must understand what has happened years ago, which can only be described in what? So history and geography move hand in hand. Exactly. History and geography move hand in hand. So history must be supported geographically, and geography must be supported what? Historically. Herodotus provides some excellent examples of what today we will call both human geography and historical geography. He is also identified as the father of ethnography because of his vivid portrayal of the cultural traits of people strange to the Greeks. So under Herodotus alone, even his first slide is very detailed. You have a lot of contributions. One, he says that he was someone who liked to visit places and make recordings of what he has seen. Secondly, we said that he's described as the first great historian, okay, meaning that he was part of the literary tradition. Then he's also credited with saying that all history must be treated geographically, and all geography must be treated what? Historically. Then next we say that he's identified as the father of ethnography, which is the study of culture. Ethnography is a study of culture, of places or people. Okay, all right. Now, he used the methods of historical geography to support the hypothesis that the Nile mud, the river Nile, the mud that's it's attributed to it, deposited in the Mediterranean, had built a delta. A delta is a landform that is created at the mouth of a river where it enters the sea. All right. Now, he also pointed out that wind blows from cold places to places that are warmer. Now, this statement is very profound because way before the birth of Christ, people understood that air circulates or air moves from one place to the other. Before the birth of Christ, something that we when we I think we all, when we were in what's the name, primary school, ever conducted this experiment. They will ask people to bring, what's the name. I think you since you are all teachers, I'm sure you might have at a point in time ask your student to do this. You bring cloth to school, you tie it around your waist, you use your hand to hold it, and you're running around in school. Air occupies space and the direction, and yes, yes. So at this point, at this particular time, so many years before the birth of Christ, Herodotus had contributed to geography by making this statement. Now, this is not entirely geographic, as you may think, but some things about air circulation and all of those things can easily fall under what? Meteorology and climatology. Essentially talking about what? Geography. I hope you are drawing the linkages and all those things in there. All right. Now, he also suggested that the Nile floods were caused by melting snow in Ethiopia, because Ethiopia is closer to the equator than Egypt. Egypt has never had any snow, so how can there be snow in Ethiopia? So that's just a statement or an explanation that he made. The Nile River in Egypt, okay, taking its source somewhere in Sudan or so, okay, occasionally it gets flooded. Occasionally it gets flooded. Now, people were of the view that the Nile floods, the flooding of the Nile was caused by snow that was melting in Ethiopia. Now, the idea is this: Ethiopia is closer to the equator than Egypt. And if Egypt does not have snow, how can there be snow in Ethiopia? I think a hand is up. Whose hand is up? Is a hand up? All right, let's move on. Let me take it again. The Nile River occasionally gets flooded. Okay. The explanation that people gave around that time was that just as rivers overflow their banks in Ghana, that sometimes the river Volta, for instance, will say, I think some few years ago, it flooded part of the Volta region, and a whole community, whole towns were completely flooded. People had to be evacuated and all of that. Okay. And the source or the cause of that flooding was that the Akosombo Dam was opened. Around that time, the Nile River also occasionally got flooded. The explanation that people gave at that time was that there was snow in Ethiopia. And when that snow melted, it added to the volume of the river, which meant the river would now flood. Is that clear? Now, he refused that idea, or he rejected that suggestion, because his argument was that Ethiopia was closer to the equator than Egypt. Okay, and if not for anything, we know that areas around the equator are very hot. A place like Ghana, a place like Nigeria, these areas usually experience high temperatures. All right. Now, Ethiopia is closer to the equator than Egypt, which meant that Egypt was a little further away. If Egypt has not experienced any snow before, even the Egypt that is not close to the equator, Egypt has not experienced snow before. How can there be snow in Ethiopia, which was rather closer to the equator and had higher temperatures? So which meant that he disputed that fact. All right. And much later, certain people will give better descriptions or better explanations as to why the Nile River regularly got what flooded. Now, Herodotus, in talking with Egyptian priests, had learnt of a Phoenician expedition sent out by the king Neto, who ruled Egypt between 610 to 594 BC. Is there a question?
Yes, sir.
Someone? Yes, go ahead.
I learned recently there was some experience of snow in Accra. So
Snow in Accra,
wouldn't it be, yeah,
my dear brother, it
wouldn't
is not.
it, uh,
It can't be true.
well, what
The
I've read
the
about
reason. Mhm.
the inundation was that it occurred annually. It occurred annually.
No, it can't be true. I'll explain to you why it can't be true. Because
Okay.
where we are located on the equator, we are closest to the equator. In fact, you might have heard that Ghana is in the center of the world, where the longitude 0 degrees or the Greenwich meridian passes through Ghana at Tema. If you remember physical
Yes.
geography, yes.
Yes.
Now, the idea is that we are so close to the equator that temperatures here are quite high. If there is anything that we know about rain formation or the water cycle, okay, water gets evaporated on the ground. It warms up and evaporates into the sky. When it gets into
Yes.
the sky, it cools and condenses and then falls back. Now, in colder areas, when it condenses, it solidifies and falls back as snow. So areas in the temperate zones and areas closer to the North Pole and the South Pole, that is what they experience. Places in America, places in parts of South Africa, Namibia, and the like, they experience snow because of their distance away from the equator. They are cold areas. Usually within the winter season, they experience snow. Now, we are closer to the equator because of the heat, okay? Because the sun, usually we are closest to the sun. The areas around the North Pole and the South Pole, they are further away. But areas around the equator, when the sun gets overhead, we experience the heat more. And so that water that has cooled and condensed in the atmosphere cannot fall back in the solid form because it will now be warm. And what do we know about warm water? Warm water will always flow, but solidified water will then fall as snow. So that's why when you put your water out, when you put a sachet of water in a fridge and you take it out, you realize that it's eventually the water will now defreeze and then fall and then looks like normal water. And so that is why it cannot. I doubt it will ever rain in Accra because our location on the equator or in the world at large will not permit us to experience that. So that notion, I don't know where you saw it from. I don't know which news outlet brought it out, but I doubt it has ever snowed in Accra. So what you may have experienced may be what we call a fog. Okay, a fog. So sometimes those of you who have vehicles or cars, and even if you take any other transport, you realize that usually during the Hamatan, it appears there's some whitish something that is covering the road. It's like you can't really drive through. You can't really see through. You can only see a few meters in front of your eyes. That is a fog. That is not snow. Snow is a form of precipitation. So the solidified form of rain is snow, and it can't snow in Accra in any part of the areas around the equator, as a matter of fact. So, Samuel, are we okay?
I'm okay. I'm okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. All right. Any other question? I think was someone's hand up. All right. Please, if you have the
But sir,
microphone. Okay. Yes.
what
Go
about
ahead.
the ice cube that falls during rainfall?
Ice cubes in Ghana.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. like small ice.
Small, small ice in Ghana.
Or
Wow,
you have not
interesting.
experienced it before.
Personally,
I
I
have
haven't.
experienced it.
You have experience? Has any other person on the platform experienced it before?
So he is trying to talk about sukochinya, that thing that the ice blocks that usually fall heavily after the rainfalls. That is what he is referring to.
Okay, so that's I understand what you are saying now. That is something that we call hail. Hail. That is HAIL. After the lecture, you can go and read about it. It's called hail, and it falls. I don't know how to describe it, but it is not snow. It is not snow. It is different from snow. Okay. Yes. Ibrahim. Yes. Or Paulo too has mentioned it. That's the hailstones. They are not snow. Okay. All right. Ibrahim Osman, your hand is up.
Sir, please, you've explained it. You've explained
Okay.
what I had wanted to ask.
Sure. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you very much.
All right. All right. Let's go back to Herodotus. Uh, yeah. Now, in his talking with some Egyptian priests, he had learned of a Phoenician expedition sent out by a king to sail around the southern end of Libya. Remember, Libya was the name of Africa by that time. Now, this expedition proved that the land is indeed entirely surrounded by water. And today we know this is true because the entire continent of Africa is surrounded by water. Is that okay? All right. So that is that about Herodotus. In fact, we know that Herodotus was one of the first people to be credited with being the great historian, or he was the first great historian, meaning that he liked to visit places, record what he saw, and then publish them or write them down in his books, which also meant that he was part of what the literary tradition. Okay, now he's also credited with making one profound statement, saying that all history must be treated geographically and all geography must be treated historically, emphasizing the fact that history will largely be abstract if not for the locational connection or attachment to which is provided by what geography. And the same applies vice versa, where history supports geography in the sense that before you can thoroughly understand what is going on now, why we have mountains in around the Ethiopian Togo ranges, but when you move to Accra and all the way to the southern part of the Volta region, you experience flat land, what we call the southeast coastal plains. Okay, why we have so much flat land around that area, before you can thoroughly understand that, you must go into history. You must understand landforms that have been changing from time immemorial. You understand? And so all history must then be treated geographically. So to understand to understand history, you must understand geography. And then to understand geography, you must understand what? History. Okay. Next, we say that he was also considered to be the father of ethnography, which means that he was the first person to start studying the culture of people, studying and understanding and also documenting the culture of people. Is that clear? All right. So I think, all right. Okay. So for now, we will close here for today. I think we are supposed to end around 11 o'clock. But I'll close early for you today because today we've done a lot of things. It wouldn't be fair for us to compile things in your mind. I know I said I'll do about 3 people before we close, but let's just take it here because even under the classicals, we've done Homer, the 3 people from Miletus, and then Herodotus, which means we've done 5 of them today. We have about 6 or so more to go, if I'm not telling lies. We'll pause here today. Is there any question, class? Someone is asking for the slides. Yes, it will be provided to you. Oh, you love me. I love you too. And hey,
Yes, please. Can I ask
alligator
a question?
Hamidu. Yes. Lucas, you are saying something, yeah. Lucas,
Yes, yes.
yeah, go ahead.
Um, yes, earlier in your presentation, you mentioned that there are two teams in geography, mathematical and is it literary or something like
Yes,
that?
sir. Yes, sir.
But in physical geography, when we're doing the physical geography, we also realize that there are four teams there. So I was wondering, is it about the specific field that you are looking at that
Which
tells
which
the
which four
team?
teams did you study under physical geography?
Yeah, under physical
Sorry.
geography, I think we looked at the physical geography, human, then the
Oh no, no.
human
Okay,
land
okay. Lucas,
tradition.
Lucas,
Yes, yes.
Lucas. I understand where the confusion is coming from, but don't be confused. Thank you for the points once again. But the issue is this: those things you are mentioning are branches of geography. The human geography, the physical geography, and all of those things, they are branches of geography. Okay. We over here we are talking about the tradition of geography. The tradition of geography, not the themes of geography. Okay, they are two different things. Those branches are basically disciplines in geography. Okay, they are sub-disciplines in geography. There are a lot of them, a lot of them. There are disciplines and there are sub-disciplines. So there are a lot of them. You have physical geography, there's human geography, there's thematic geography. You have other sub-disciplines like biogeography. There are a lot of them. Okay, but the two main traditions, or let me say ideologies, in geography, there are certain geographers that like to describe geographic things mathematically using numbers, using angles, using figures. Okay, those people they will always want to measure certain things. They always want to attribute something quantifiable to geography, and those people we classify them as what mathematical tradition. Now, there are also other geographers who would like to observe, make reports, record them, discuss them with people. They are not people who like to measure or experiment. They will just sit somewhere, what they heard, then they will document it. They, in a Ghanaian context, we'll call them Kokonza people. Okay, because all they do is to hear things and record them. Remember, Greece at a point in time was the center of academic knowledge. Okay, so people from different parts of the world will gather there to discuss things, to provide certain information, and all of that. If this was true, it means that there were people who were there just to hear things and record and put things down to basically document what is going on. Those people were part of what the literary tradition. They were not experimenting, they were not measuring, they were not attributing anything quantifiable to geography. Okay, they were just literary. They were like using of words to explain what they were seeing. Okay, but there were people they were interested in measuring what is going on. If it was a fire outbreak, they would like to go and test it out. They would like to measure the area that has been consumed by the fire. So, Lucas, are you clear now?
Yes, yes, I got that. Yes, but I think I made a mistake when I mentioned the teams, those particular teams. But we also looked at specific traditions like the area studies tradition, the human land tradition, the spatial tradition, and then earth science tradition.
So,
Yes, and
thank
the
you very much, Lucas.
nature of geography.
Yes. So that is just as you said, that is the nature of geography. Okay. Now, all those four things that you mentioned, there are two ideologies in all of them. An aspect will look at mathematics because aerial studies, you can't talk about area without mathematics. Okay, but there are human environment relations that can only be described in what? Words. The environment gives us oxygen, we give it whatever. That is just the literal understanding. Whatever
Okay,
you study
so
about physical geography is okay for physical geography, okay? But when we come to geography itself, because geography is broader than physical geography, I hope you are getting it. So when it comes to geography
yes,
itself, there are two main ideologies. Let me use the word ideologies or philosophies. Remember, a philosophy will give you the broader idea, the roots of everything. And in that, there are two, mathematical and then literary. So just connote it with the
literally.
various explanations and the examples I've given to each of them, and you should be fine. Okay?
Yes, yes, exactly.
All right.
So that means that the rest, those ones can even fit either into mathematical or literary.
Exactly. But at this
Oh,
point, I would advise you not to mention those ones here because
yes.
you may get confused or it may even confuse whoever is going to mark your paper. Okay, so
Okay,
that is
okay.
fine. Thank you very much. All
Yeah,
right.
thank you, sir.
Same, you do say you can go ahead.
Yeah, so I was even about to correct him with the teams. The teams were in
Oh, okay.
nature of geography, not physical.
That's fine. That's fine. Thank you very much. Okay. Okay, let me go to the comment section. Someone says she loves me. Oh, me too. I love you. I love you too. Get in touch. Are we getting the books? Your books are ready. Distributed either today or tomorrow. Latest by Monday, you should be getting your books. Or let me, to be safe, yeah, to be safe, I would tell you that before the next meeting, which is next week Saturday, your books will be with you. But in the interim, I will send you the slides so that you can start going through. In not menu, are we okay, sir? All right, thank you. Please, the slides. That's I just addressed that one. Michael Asante. Some of us couldn't join early, so we'll be happy if you. Oh, exactly. I'll do that. I like you. Michael. All right. I think Raymond. Raymond, let's hear from you.
Yes, sir. On the issue of the books, I just want to alert those from the Bolga Girls Center
Mm-hmm.
that I have just gone to pick the books, so they should contact me for their books.
Okay. Those from Boga, your
Those
rep
in
says
Bolga Center, they should contact me.
okay. The Boga Center, your rep says your books are with him. So after the class, you can contact him and then you'll be sorted out. Thank you. Ibrahim Osman, your hand is up again.
Sir, please, with the regards to the books as well.
Which center are you?
UCC.
UCC.
Yes,
UCC,
please.
I'm on UCC campus, and your books should either be given to you now, which means
as I speak, I am in Fosu right now, but I'll contact my I'll contact Steven, who is my course rep.
Contact Steven, and I think your books. I personally packaged your books and everything, Earth Science and what's the name, GEO212D to be sent to your center, so it will be available when you are ready next week. You can get it.
Okay, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
Sir.
Yes, sir.
So with the social science, the list that I gave Prof, I think last week I gave him 30 and 33, but then by the collection of the money, the names it has gone higher. So I called
Okay,
Prof,
so you need
yesterday.
more books. Mm-hmm.
Yes, so I gave him another list that's either 15 added to the already list that I gave him. So he said he's going to order for those books for it to be
Yes, I
sent.
think all of those books, everything is ready now. So, as I said, you get in touch after the class. You and I will discuss and see how we can get the books across. Okay. All right. Mary,
Okay, please.
Ponsajama, talk to me.
Yeah, sir.
Yes. Mhm.
My
Okay. Someone, let's listen to the lady first. Ladies first.
So please, I want to inform Kumasi Center that their books are with me, so they should contact me after the lectures for the books and how it is going to be distributed to them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Please, people from Kumasi, the gospel has reached you. The gospel of Mary. Please contact her after the lecture and you'll get your books. Thank you. Samuel.
yeah, so my humble request is we may need some past questions and some clues about how to answer questions.
Don't worry,
in
Samuel.
regards.
Samuel, you are in safe hands. I'll take care of you. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So thank you very much for your time today. The lecture will always be like this, very calm, very friendly, so that you don't get confused. We'll take it slow and easy. So I'll commend you for your comportment today. No interactions, no intrusions. I'm very grateful for your time this morning. Those who want my number to contact, my number is being sent to your comment section right now. Okay, so my number is in the comment section. Those who need assistance with any explanation or anything, my name is there, my contact is there. You can contact me, and yeah, I think a lot of comments. Will you be asked to give account on only one person or two combined? Well, what will happen is, how do I explain this to you? So there's a section that will cover the classical geographers. Okay, Prince Aganu, I'm answering your question. There's a section that will cover the classical geographers, where you'll be asked to discuss maybe one or at most two of these people. Maybe one, at most two of these people. And then there will be a section that will cover maybe some other chapters, because I know for certain that a question will come from the age of exploration, because there's a very, very typical exam type question over there that we'll get to. Okay, but not to make you more anticipated or anxious for the exam. Take it easy. I'll address all of these things. In fact, we'll have a session that would address exam issues. So maybe after the last meeting, if possible, we can find a day within the week to discuss things about the exam, how to solve the questions and what to do, what not to do. Is that okay? All right. The class has been lively. Oh, thank you. Congrats to yourselves too. You have made it. Someone says some of us are on UCC campus. Can we pick up the books in person? Yes, exactly. When you get to the UCC center, your books should be there, because I made sure that your books were given to your tutor, Mr. Eric, Dr. Eric Abode. So contact him, and then your books will be given to you. Any other question? Sefirio also, books should contact me. Yes. Okay. Madam Regina Kwai says your books are with her. Those from Sefirio also, please contact her and your books will be delivered to you. Madam Regina, it will be best to put your number. All those who need their members to get their books, please put your number in the platform. If you don't have a platform already, contact them and then they will get your books to you. I was frightened by a friend for due thoughts. I have met a good experience doctor, so no cause for. Oh, you are in safe hands. Don't worry. Sunyane Center, your book should be delivered to you either today or tomorrow. Okay. Yes, you'll be taken care of. You made me fall in
Sorry,
love with you.
Sunyani Center, our books are
Yes.
here already. I have even placed it in the comment section that they should call me. I have gone for them,
Exactly.
and then I will see how I distribute it to them. So they should call me. They know me. Don't worry.
All right, sure, sure. Okay. Thank
Um,
you very much for your time
sir,
today once again. Yes, Stephen,
with the Sunyani Center, the course it is blended by social studies and
the social science.
the social science. So with the Sunyani Center, the social science, they have their books with Prof. I'm sure within the week, Prof will deliver the books to them.
Yes,
I've given
yes,
their
yes,
list and
exactly.
everything.
Yes. So as you, Stephen,
I
as I
think
said, you after the lecture, contact me so that we see what we do. Okay.
okay, sir. Okay.
All right, all right. So thank you for your time once again. Hope to see you next week. Please, the slide will be sent. Those who have the books, please read. That's the issue with the history courses. Please, if you don't read, you would forget. If you don't read, you would forget. Please read. Thank you very much. Have a good week. Bye bye.
My course rep. Geography major course rep. Please, are you there? Mr. Steven.
So what time is the next lecture? Or is it only one lecture today?
Well, therefore,